Okay, I don't know if this is gonna work, but good morning, all. This is Bisagni, and we're starting something new today. I'm gonna go through a couple of different things. But the first thing I'm gonna go through is this is Shayne Smith, and this video is really interesting. It's called. Let me just make this smaller so you can see it a little bit. Oh, it's not letting me make it smaller. Well, it's called how I how and why I changed my life. And Shayne Smith, I don't know if you know him, but he's one of my favorite comics from Dry Bar Comedy. He used to live in Utah, and he's just super funny. I don't know that I've shown him to my kids. I try to show comedy to my kids as much as possible, um, but I don't think I showed his comedy to my kids. I might have, but he's just super funny. He's a great comedian, and yeah, one of my favorite comedians right now, actually, in the world. But yeah, this is a really interesting video. He was not a Christian as far as I know, and if you guys have been watching my videos, you know that I am Christian, and that I try to highlight um, just Christian values and things that I think or believe just because that's who I am. And just check this out. This is cool. He just talked about for like, this is a great video. He just talked for about 13 minutes about his journey moving to New York. And I lived in New York, and I would agree it's one of those areas where if you have leftist ideals, you are going to find a hot spot to understand those more deeply and be supported. And it's a kind of a bed of hedonism there. He goes through his journey about starting to realize that the community he was a part of didn't actually care for each other. Now, I will say this: I was part of a leftist community uh, in Brooklyn when I was there in like the 90s and the 2000s, and they did support us. They were very kind, very supportive, very community oriented. But that's the old school Democrats and liberals, not the new school Democrats and liberals. And really, he goes into the progressives are the ones he has issue with. But yeah, just listen to this. This is so crazy.
Conservative organization. It was the Catholic Church. And not just in New York City, but like worldwide. No one does more material aid for the working class, period. Like, they are living leftist values for real. You know, they are getting wealth and distributing it to the working class more than any other organization, not only on earth currently, but in history. And after reading all this and kind of like seeing the proof in the pudding and going to volunteer places, it confirmed that, and it just blew my mind. So at this point, my depression is at an all-time high. You know, I'm seeing the cracks in my worldview and how my lifestyle is unhealthy. I'm noticing everyone I'm friends with who is behaving like I am and espousing all the correct progressive values. They're all miserable. They're on drugs. They all struggle with mental health constantly. And again, I'm not knocking people who have genuine mental health problems, but we're over-medicated, and we all know it. Okay?
I would agree with
and
that.
So many of us aren't doing anything to try and fix it before going to medication. And
Yeah, I think that's pretty
they're
accurate.
ridden with anxiety and sadness. They're often weak physically and mentally. They're vain. They're obsessed with pleasure. And I don't know. I was just like, I'm like that. I'm like that. And then I start to notice who online doesn't behave that way. You know, because that's where I'm at. That's where a lot of my community is, especially after and during, you know, that thing that happened to all of us in 2020 and stuff. So, and who doesn't act like that? My friends from where I grew up, the dumb rednecks who got married early and went to church. Like, despite hardships, struggles, they seem by and large happy. but most importantly, fulfilled. You know, they really loved the things in their life. They weren't victims, even if they were poor or disabled or different in a lot of ways. They were proud of themselves and their family and their community and their country. Not only that, but instead of being mad about working class issues and just raging about them, you know, when they have no means to fix systemic things, you know, and this is to say they don't vote, they do, but like they were focused on helping their neighbor. They were focused on living out their values, being kind to the people they directly interacted with. You know, they were.
And I just want to say something here. That's just a normal Christian value. That's something that we should all espouse to. Kindness. You have to draw boundaries, but you have to be kind, you know, and you just need to know who you are and how you would want to be treated and treat others the same way. That's it.
Converting their worldview to daily praxis. You know, and online people are always talking about praxis, but like, you know, my conservative small town friends are doing it. You know, they don't have to talk, they don't even know what praxis is probably, and they're doing it. You know, the community they interacted with is real, not online, and they were willing to fight for it. You know, no talk, no social cannibalism, no shame, just like hard work and respect. And man, that is appealing. So at this point, I'm coming to grips with how badly I messed up, and my frustration and my anger towards like an admittedly terrible system. I became focused on my rage and channeled that into a community that told me I was right to be angry. I should rebel against the status quo by rejecting virtue and my neighbor who doesn't agree with me, and I was right.
Okay, I would agree with that. Also, the weird thing to me about modern leftism is the rejection of virtue. Um, and for the wrong reasons. I think for the reasons that they reject virtue because they think it's a Christian construct meant for control. Whereas for the annals of human history, virtue has been lauded by even non Christian people as the basis of all modern society. So I think that's a good observation. It's a very good observation.
And how dare they push their morals on me? How dare people ask of me, like, I'll destroy the system, I'll destroy everything, I'll burn it, everything to the ground, and I'll rebuild it how we all think it's correct, how we all think it's right. And this is a fantasy. It's a complete fantasy. There will never be a communist revolution, and no one on the left values strength enough to do anything that would need to be done. Straight up. That I was living in a fantasy, and when you pursue fantasy, reality becomes the enemy. Okay? When you live in a fantasy world, reality becomes your enemy. I can't say that enough times. I didn't need reality. That was where Nazis live, right? I was in the bubble. And I realized at this time, I have to leave this bubble and start living in reality, because that's where actual people live who need help. So I started changing my lifestyle, and I started slow. You know, I tried to stop watching porn. I was trying to give women my attention less and less. No more political podcasts. I quit that, and I slowly started entertaining ideas and looking into opinions I used to outright dismiss without researching them. You know, at this point, I got a few opportunities to be what would considered like conservative events, okay, or shows, and wouldn't you know it, they were wildly kind and supportive of me. even when I would tell them I was a leftist, they would still invite me, still talk to me like a human being, still hear me out, still disagree with me respectfully, and continue to be my friend. And
Okay, this is really interesting to me because when I was when I was younger and I was living in New York City, I was a very, very left-leaning individual, anti-war, anti-establishment. Saw the problems with, um, the multi-letter agencies being intrusive. Saw the issues with a huge military-industrial complex, and but we always were okay with other people having other ideas, and even doing anti-war protests, we completely supported the military. We loved the military guys. We just thought the politicians were shoving them into a war that they shouldn't be in, which turned out we were right, which is crazy. Um, but we also respected people's views. We didn't agree with the right at that time, uh, but we also understood where they were coming from. We thought they were wrong, but we could still have a beer with someone and just chill, and that would be fine. And I think that's become lost because of the extreme views of progressive Democrats. Now, I don't have a problem with Democrats at all. I think there's going to be Democrats and Republicans in heaven. I think that everyone in America is entitled to their opinion, right or wrong. That's why we have the First Amendment. So I think it's interesting too that like people don't realize this, but conservatives just want to live their own life according to their values, and they don't mind if you do the same thing. They just get upset when you try to impose your values into our life, and that's really the only time that they draw a line and say, no, you're not coming in here with that, and you're not going to affect my kids with that. That's where they start drawing lines. And I think that's their right, because that's how society works. The problem that we've run into in our modern society is that people have shut down the communication lines, and that is really dangerous. I always want to hear people's opposing views, especially if I don't understand. Because I want to try to understand. I'm not going to agree with you necessarily, unless it seems logical and rational. But again, our definitions of logical and rational might be different. I'm an analyst, and a systems administrator, so logic is really important to me, and rationalism is really important to me because it's foundational to being able to troubleshoot problems. So, opinion, I have no problem with disagreeing with people. Facts, I start to get a little bit on edge about people ignoring facts. But it's not my job to teach people facts. It's their job to learn the facts. So, yeah, I like where this is going. It's pretty interesting. I think it's is something that a lot of leftist people who want to be free to think on their own are starting to wake up to, that their only sanctuary is going to be with conservatives, which is really interesting.
I was like, man, how is it that the racist bad guys are kind? And the more I looked into it, the more like wildly diverse this like group
we're
of
not racists.
conservative evil people were. They were actually a lot of poor and working class people of all religions and races. While in New York, I'm looking around, and on the right or on the left online, I'm looking around, and pretty much everyone, or the giant majority of them, seem to be white, rich, upper class, college educated people, or like, what in the world? So,
Yep.
of course, my life started to improve, and so did my mental health, like a lot, noticeably. I discovered I was misdiagnosed by a psychiatrist. They told me that I had a condition and I didn't, and it was a whole thing, and it like really affected my life. So I got rid of that mentality, that victim mentality I had, and that
Oh,
whole
thank
thing.
goodness.
I stopped taking medication. I prioritized going outside more, and that's when I started surfing like way more and enjoying nature just to enjoy it. I was feeling incredible. I was doing.
Okay, we'll say this also: surfing in New York is really difficult. One, because the waves are really small. Two, because the water can be really cold. If you're not getting the Gulf Stream up from Florida, that water can be like 40 degrees. So that probably was really good for him, actually.
Great. And at this point, I started to consider that if I was wrong about all this stuff, like maybe I was wrong about other things. What if God is real? And I started making jokes on my podcast about like becoming religious at the time. And at that point, I decided I was a theist. And I did a podcast with Toby Morse where I sort of talk about theism and broadly and how like all I was kind of doing the like all religions are right and ritual is beautiful thing and everything is important and had truth to it. And I was just kind of like hoping life after death was real and it was good. And this is when the Catholic Church came calling, you know? And I'm not going to tell you my whole conversion story. You can go see it on Pikes with Aquinas, and that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, you can go check that out. All right, so I converted, and Christ was the final piece of my puzzle. You know, I suddenly had like a complete moral framework. I had this beautiful community, like genuinely makes me emotional. Just like say it. I had answers. I had an outlet for community outreach. Like I had people I could just go to anytime, so I could help my community. You know, I had forgiveness. I had a place where I could speak openly about my problems and not just be listened to, but be guided and held accountable. I had a direction, and most importantly, I had fulfillment. I had love, and I had prayer in my life. I was and am truly fulfilled, and for the first time in my life, I had like true and complete conviction. I knew I was doing the right thing, you know, and that's really nice. You have to understand that being Catholic isn't just like being a hippie, like how like some non-denominational Christians are, you know. A lot of Christians here in America, they kind of just
That's
believe
amazing.
being nice is what Jesus wanted for us. Catholics don't do that. Catholics are called to make Christ the center of their life, follow the doctrine of the church. It's a guiding light in your life and a lifestyle and something you're supposed to consider in every aspect of your daily life, you know. You aren't told you're just fine the way you are. You
Okay, so there's a couple of things here that I'm just going to go over, which I appreciate. One is, yeah, Christian community is amazing. Two is, yes, there are Christians in the Catholic Church. I 100% believe that. I've met a lot of good Christians in the Catholic Church. Martin Luther was a Catholic. He didn't want to leave the Catholic Church. He wanted to reform it. Um, Now, are there shortcomings in the Catholic Church? Of course. There's tons of things that they could do better. Um, the doctrine that the Catholic Church doctrine is more important than Scripture, they could stand to get rid of that. Um, just because the truth of the matter is, you really need to have a standard of belief, and that standard of belief has to be the Bible. I love that he was talking about non-denominational Christian hippies because that's really funny. I come from my parents were Catholic, then they were charismatic Catholic, which is really crazy. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, look up charismatic Catholics. They then became Pentecostals and joined the Assembly of God Church, and so they were out there. That was in the 80s and 90s, and then they then when I got older, in like the I was a Wiccan priest for a while. I was studying Native American black magic, and then eventually I became a Christian in a non-denominational church. The funniest thing is the non-denominational hippies are hilarious. That's just a great phrase. I love that phrase that he used. It's super funny. Um, but I will say this: Catholic Church is great when it comes to uh, Christians who need a lot of structure and also need a sense of awe in their life, like this desire to understand the magnitude of Christ and his work. They get a little weird on their doctrine of who Mary is and how that all works, but um, they do a lot of things really well. And helping communities, they do pretty well. Um, Creating a sense of community in Catholic Church is, they're very good at that too. I will say it's going to be different in different churches, so it sounds like you found a really good Catholic church. Um, but yeah, I think this is really cool. I don't have a problem with the way people come to Christ. It's always so different. So I definitely want to see that Pints with Aquinas with Shayne. I gotta write that down so I don't forget. But yeah, how cool! I think Shayne might be a Christian now. That's amazing. Um, Outstanding. I can't wait to see his comedy now that it's going to be have a different worldview. It's probably going to be just as funny. It's just going to be easier to show my kids. um,
You aren't told to be happy. You aren't told to be comfortable. You're asked to do hard work and make hard
Yeah.
choices, and you're expected to rise to the occasion and
That's
strive
Christianity.
towards greatness. And not only is this expected of you, the community truly believes you can do this, and they give you all the tools you need.
Oh, I lost it. Seriously. Are you kidding? What just happened? Alright. Okay, I'm gonna call it there. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for
You aren't
watching
told
this
to
video
be
with me.
comfortable. You're
Here we go. I'm just gonna kill it. Alright. I hope that was fun. I hope that was helpful. Um, um, that's so cool that Shayne Smith may have become Christian. How crazy is that? So that video is from 10 days ago. Today's the 3rd of December. That's pretty neat. I'm pretty excited for him. Alright, I'm going to end this video there. It's just kind of an experiment. Hope you guys are well. If you want, I just created a course for learning how to do information security at home. If you're interested in that, just follow the links in the description. Peace.